We don't have a presentation today, but yesterday we did receive bids. The lowest bid was 1.55%, and for an all-in cost of 1.68%. The current rates on the remaining 11 years of the Lasada debt was approximately 2.9% on average. So this refinancing of the debt at Lasada. So this was the debt we took out in 2014 to remodel the nursing home facility. Will save the nursing home facility approximately $700,000 over the remaining 11 years. We do have Brian Brewer, who is our bond counsel, with us today. If there's any additional questions with this, this should be relatively straightforward. At least we hope. So if there's any questions, we're happy to answer them. And the executive committee just met and they revised the resolution. So the number in the resolution that is before you today is $6,175,000 to be six million. Okay, 6,750,000. See, I shouldn't have went from memory. $6,715,000. So.
Yeah, when we went out for bids, or when Baird and our finance team, there was a range that we thought would be between 1.5 and 1.75 interest. So like when Brian and I were speaking in the back of the room, he said it's amazing that people, knowing inflation is coming, that they would even still bond at this rate. But there's probably limitations and stuff that's the only thing they can bond at. So we're actually quite lucky to hit this number. And it's over $700,000. Can't kick at that. Thank you to the finance team and to Brian and Jason for watching it. So Supervisor Winker.
Just a question to Jason. This original borrowing was from 14, and when will this officially end? That was a 20-year note. What's the end date on this?
2024 will be the 2023 is the final. 34. Sorry, I'm going from memory again. 2034. I know I was.
Thank you, Supervisor.
I was told there'd be no math today.
Do we have a motion from the floor? We have a motion from Supervisor Nelson, second by Supervisor Wolf. Now we can discuss and kind of jump the gun a little bit there. Supervisor Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, is it possible that you could put up on the screen that attachment you sent yesterday afternoon on the bids? The one that looks like this, or? Although it would help if we could. Sorry, I should have talked to you earlier. Huh? It's the one that Jason sent out yesterday afternoon, the attachment. Looks like this.
Yeah, this isn't hooked up to my, hang on, it's not hooked up to my email. I gotta dump it in a Google Drive. Here it is. wait, now we gotta get it on the screen. It's an intricate system of levers and switches.
Enigma machine.
Levers, that's a good word.
Oh, come on, baby.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, and then the lowest bid or whatever you want to call it. Sandler and Company. Page 2, I believe then. There you go, there you go. Okay, I have a bunch of questions on this, and I guess Supervisor Wolf has asked you to explain that. Should I ask a couple dumb questions first and then?
Yeah,
There's different interpretations amongst us right now as to what we're looking at. My interpretation is that the bids went out with coupons at like 2%. People said, I'm willing to pay less or get less than 2% interest. So they paid more than 100% of the bond value. So you have like $104 or $103 instead of $100 bid. And that drove your interest rate down below the 2%. So that first number, 901, to me is what our interest is going to be for the 12 years. To me, the premium, the 184, is that the bidder bid $184,000 more than the 6,710,000. And by doing that, we ended up with an interest rate of 155 instead of 2.0. I guess I'll just start with that. Maybe you can, if you can clarify what those
sure.
numbers mean.
Yeah, I mean, generally, conceptually, you're getting there. The difference is that we didn't put any coupons out there. So it was, you had 6,710,000 for bid that were in the rough increments of this column here, the 500,000, 510, 520, 530. So those are individual amounts based on your repayment plan for the original 2014
Right.
bonds, right? You'd asked me the question when we were here 2 weeks ago. We're not changing the structure of that repayment. So we put out for bid that you needed an estimate of 6,710,000, and in roughly these increments, right, based on our estimate of what they were going to bid.
Right.
But ultimately, we don't control what they bid. So this bidder bid in the first year a 1% coupon with it to yield a 0.4. So your cost of borrowing for that maturity is 0.4. Your cost of borrowing for the next one has a 2% coupon that you'll pay back over time, like
Right.
for the next 2 years till 2024. But the yield is a 0.65. So your cost of funds is that yield column.
Right.
Where you were going with the dollar price is correct. So the investor that owns that second year, their rate of return is a 0.65, but they're going to get paid a 2% coupon. So why would the county do that, right? The only reason the county would do that is if they gave extra money today, which is what the bid premium amount is, and we use that to lower the amount you need to borrow, right? So that's how bid premium works. And the reason you'll see in all of these bids, like this one was 1% in the first year and then 2% coupon thereafter. The second bidder, they were 2% the whole time. The third bidder, they were 2%, and then they threw a 3% there in the middle. Basically, what's happening there, and this has been happening for the last decade of time that you financed, like this happened a year ago as well. When rates are this low, they don't want to own something that starts with a zero. Like even though their rate of return is that, they want to be able to trade it in the secondary market a month from now, a year from now, if they want. And it's easier to trade if it has a higher coupon on it, especially when rates are moving up, like when the expectation is that rates will be higher. So that's why you see all 4 of these bids using a higher coupon, which then we, in the bid specifications, we said that's okay up to a 1.03, a 3% premium basically is the highest that they could have bid. And the winning bidder was a 2.87. They used 2.87 of that 3%. So in the end, to your point, at the coupon cost, it's 906, but we have to subtract out the extra money that the investor is giving as a premium. So your net interest is the 750,000. So that's how you get to the net rate.
Oh, you got to go down one
Oh,
more.
sorry.
There you go. There you go.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Next question. So then the county, we've got not only the 6,700,000, but we also got 184,000 coming in, right?
The 6,715,000 is adjusted based on that number. So no, we've already factored in that you were going to get some amount. In fact, that's the reason that between the draft resolution that was 6,710,000 and what you're approving this morning, which is 6,715,000, that 5,000 means that we had assumed that the bidder was going to give you a little more bid premium than they actually gave you. So because they gave you the 184,000, you needed to add 5,000 of par amount, borrowing amount, to have enough to pay off the old 2014 bonds. So we were already factoring in that they were going to bid with bid premium, because otherwise we would have just, had we not done that, we would have, the original bidding size would have been 6,890,000.
So we're not really borrowing that much in the beginning.
Correct.
Okay, which wasn't clear here. So then we're not going to get other than a basic 6,715,000. That'll be going into our debt service fund that we have set up.
You
Is that-
get it on February 23rd, so to sit there for a week, and then on March 1st, it goes to pay off. It gets sent out
Okay.
to go pay off the old 2014 bondholders.
Okay,
So you won't have the 6,715,000 for very long.
okay. And then the 0.13%, which is the costs for your services and everybody associated with getting this done. Is that 0.13% once, or is that over each of?
Yeah, that's an all-in one time at closing, right? So we basically take the cost of our services, the Moody's rating service, Quarles and Brady's service, and turn that into a rate for you, so you know what your all-in borrowing rate, is comparable to. So the bidder and the investors, their rate is that 155, and then when you see an all-inclusive rate of a 1.68, that 0.13 is the cost of accessing the market as in terms of an average rate. So, but it's the one-time fees at the beginning of the
It's a
transaction.
one-time, not every year.
Correct.
It seems awfully low in my mind at this point. 0.13 of 6 million is what, 10,000?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want,
No.
I can raise.
No, I mean, if that's the fee, that's
Yeah, that's cheap.
okay. I was thinking it was for every year, and well, then we'd be at 100,000. So that's why I asked the question. Okay, thanks, Brian, for the explanation. That helps me a lot. Hopefully it'll help others. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Richard. Is there any other questions that you would have for Brian?
I just want to ask one.
Supervisor Gravel?
Well, on page 9, it says we're going to be saving $800,000. You just said $750,000. Earlier was said $700,000. So which number approximately are we saving?
I didn't say 800. So the estimate when I was here 2 weeks ago, it was 796,000. The bids came in higher than those estimates because rates continue to move higher. The final savings when you replace the 2014 debt with this new debt is 714,000. over the remaining term that goes out to 2034.
Our initial projections were an all-in cost of about 1.5. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't control the bidders that showed up yesterday, right? So, or nor the market that continues to move higher. So again, part of this is because the board acted quickly, the finance team acted quickly. I mean, we could be at your February meeting, which I don't know where rates are going to be 2 weeks from now. So, it's kind of a moving target. This was the quickest you could have locked in to replace the old debt, not extend it. You're just lowering the payments. It's, similar to a refinance in your personal life, right? You're going to pay off a debt that you're already obligated for that was a higher payment, and you're lowering that payment because you have a lower cost of financing.
Thank you, Supervisor Gravel. Supervisor Millitek?
Yes, I just wanted to remind everyone that next year we have the opportunity possibly to do this again, the 2015 debt that we have. And the question is, I think this came up at finance. The reason we can't do that right now with the lower rates that before they go higher is because of some penalties or some things that we would incur, right?
Correct. Yeah. So when you sell new bonds to the market, you put in there a redemption date that the investors are bidding on those bonds, knowing that prior to the redemption date, those bonds can't be taken away from them, from them as investors. And then after that redemption date, those are eligible to be refinanced like this, like what you're doing today. The holder of the 2014 bonds would like to keep what they have, right? But the market is such that rates are lower right now, and you're taking that option to pay them off. So yes, when you sold the original 2015 bonds, the redemption date in that was an 8-year redemption. So it was March 1 of 2023.
Thanks. That's what I thought.
Thank you, Supervisor Millitek. Supervisor Nelson, hit your microphone.
Brian, were there any companies that did not return a request to bid?
Well, we send it out, and we're not individually talking to bidders. We're sending it out via a bidding platform that's the most widely used municipal bond bidding platform. And then you receive the bids that show up at that day and that time. So yesterday morning at 10:30, you had 4 bidders that showed up, and
Which is what we got back.
yes, so that's what you got back. And then the range of those bids, the Piper Sandler bid was about 8 basis points better than the next bid. And, you can see the final bid was 0.75. So it's, 0.2% higher. So you can tell there's a lot of uncertainty right now with
Sure.
where rates are and how to value locking in the next 13 years of financing rates, right? Because every day you wake up, the treasury rates are higher, and the Fed's talking about raising their rate, and the new inflation print is higher. So, to put this in perspective, the April sale of 21, you had 5 bidders, and then the January sale, you had 7. So, it's all right in that same ballpark. Yeah.
I guess that's my question. What happened to the other 3 bidders?
It just, they looked at this structure and didn't like it. Like, so the February,
I mean, we gave them an opportunity.
it was the
They
exact same
just didn't
process.
return.
Correct.
I got, okay.
Exact same process. So
That's
we put it out to anyone in the market that wants to submit a bid. We give them the specifications of what it is you're offering for sale. They compile the bids that look like this. And then we take the lowest, average, true interest cost rate. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nelson. Supervisor Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe you just answered my question, Brian, but are there any other factors in making a decision beyond looking off to the right-hand column and saying what's the lowest one in terms of who the lender is and what their policies or financial stability is, or any other factors like that?
No, the way this is set up is, we're putting out the bid specifications and indicating that the lowest bid will likely be the winner. However, you can choose anyone on this list, and we would have to revise the numbers. However, that's not the market norm. Is you're going to select the winning bidder that we believe will be there February 23rd to close. And the winning bidder submits a good faith amount to the county. Basically, it's 2% of their bid that, is held until February 23rd of 22, to indicate that they're committed to finishing this process. So all of these bidders are, regular bidders in the marketplace.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Ross. Supervisor Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brian, for your explanation. It was very, very helpful. Supervisor Richards' questions. My question is that $714,000 savings, is that net the cost of accessing the market?
Yes.
It is. Fantastic. All right, thank you.
So
Thank you to
that's why
everybody.
we talk all inclusive cost,
Mhm.
because we want to make sure what we're talking about is after everything that you're paying to get to the market and the rates that you're going to pay to investors over the next 13 years or 12 years, I guess, is factored into what you're replacing from the 2014 issue. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wolf. Is there any other questions, concerns? Any other discussion? If not, I will clear the board for the vote of the revised resolution 21-57. Motion carries on a vote of 21-0. Next up, we have a presentation from Advocates of Ozaukee on the CDBG expansion grant. Barb Fisher is here today. So if Barb wants to come up.
So as I think I've referenced multiple times with the board, we have been in the process of applying for a CBDG grant through the state of Wisconsin, similar to the one we used for the homeless shelter expansion, to help advocates with their expansion. I'm going to pull up your plans here, and with that, I will hand things over to Barb. I think if most people should know Barb, she's the executive director of Advocates, and maybe we do have some new board members, so maybe if you just spend a little bit of time, tell them who you are.
Morning. Thank you for having me today. My name is Barb Fisher. As Jason said, I have been the director at Advocates of Ozaukee since 2004. I keep thinking about retiring, but so far that hasn't happened, and it's not going to for a little while. Advocates is a 16-bed shelter located over in the Saukville area. We do try to keep the shelter somewhat quiet and unknown, just based on the amount of time the sheriff's department can take to get to us if there is an emergency. During COVID, we had a lot of real issues that came up that we didn't anticipate, as did everybody. But the shelter is an old farmstead. The home was built, we believe, sometime in the 1900s. And it is a 2-story building. There's a basement, a main floor, and a second floor. The basement right now has the children's center in it, along with the laundry. There is no way to get into that area without going down steps, unless you go outside, down a ramp and around to get into that area. That does prove to be an issue. During the pandemic, what we discovered is that the current 2,800 feet of shelter space, we were really challenged to make space for victims who needed shelter and their children, if we wanted to stay in alignment with the COVID protocols, which we really wanted to do. Families could isolate in their rooms. However, they also needed access to the bathrooms, the laundry, the kitchen in a socially distanced manner. People with disabilities could not get in and out to do their own laundry, and staff ended up having to do their own laundry, which at the peak of COVID I think many of you would understand, was not a very happy assignment for people to do, because at that point, we didn't know really how COVID was spread. So that was a real disadvantage. The shelter capacity had to decrease by about 50% in order for us to really keep the severity of any kind of COVID down. And the severity of domestic violence during that time, you all know, increased. So through a lot of creativity and commitment of our staff, we made it through the past 20 months, and we met the needs of all of our clients in the time that they needed it. We only had one wait list at that time, which was for mental health services. Mental health services have really grown with the COVID pandemic. So the expansion that we're looking at will give us enough living space so that we will be able to take people out of their rooms and let them spend some time together as a family or in small groups in a socially distanced manner. What we would be doing, if you see this up here, is what we would be doing is breaking through a bathroom that's on the first floor of the shelter. That will become a hallway, and we would be going north of the shelter with a handicap bedroom that will feature 2 beds, so there'd be enough room in there for 2 people, a large handicap bathroom, a laundry that's fully accessible according to ADA guidelines. And then for any of you who have been out to the shelter recently, you know that we added that room onto the cottage at the far end. That would be added, the exact same room would be added here, and would be another, it would be the children's area and another family area. The importance of really doing this is that reducing our census by 50% during a pandemic is just not something that we should be doing. We have the majority of our clients, 95% of them, have an income below $15,000, and 70% of them have an income below $10,000. When they're ready to leave a domestic violence situation, they really have no place to go. They can't go to a hotel, they can't afford that. They can't oftentimes go to family because the family is afraid the abuser will follow them there. Our free shelter is really the only place for them. Leaving an abusive situation is really the most dangerous time for a victim, and safety planning increased by 83% in 2020. Trying to help people come up with safety plans that they could use to get away when they needed to get away. Excuse me. In 2020, we worked with 780 people with 2,250 nights of shelter, compared to 1,044 clients who accessed 3,183 nights of shelter in 2019. That doesn't mean we didn't have anything to do because the clients we did work with, our services increased by over 66%. And I've got a list I've done on the tables. I put our annual report there, and there's some numbers in the back in case you're interested in taking a look at that. There's just one per every 2 tables because I didn't bring enough, sorry. Without the shelter expansion, advocates will continue to be able to only run at about 50%. So fewer victims will have access to a safe escape from domestic abuse. If it doesn't take place, we're going to be neglecting a very vulnerable part of our population here in Ozaukee County. You've always been so supportive of advocates and our mission. I don't believe that you would be willing to allow that to happen. Space to the house is for the most vulnerable during a national emergency. Any kind of health emergency is a basic and vital need in our community. We continue to see people coming to us with more and more issues of domestic violence and sexual assault. We recently added a second sexual assault community service person, and our sexual assault numbers have increased dramatically as a result of having that person out in the community and being able to work with folks in the community. What we're looking at right now, dollar-wise, is $879,000. Part of that is for salaries. Part of that is for furnishings and fixtures, which we're putting at about $24,000. The shelter construction, the remodel of the existing space is $168,000. The reason for that large number for the remodeling of the existing space is because we're doing an expansion onto a current building, we have to put sprinklers throughout the building. So that is in and of itself quite a large number. I also want to upgrade the electricity in the entire shelter. There are spots in the shelter where we still have fabric wrapped wires. So we would be doing both of those things to the existing shelter. Then the building addition, which would be 2,700 square feet, we're estimating at $486,000. We put a large contingency fee in because we know that the bids that you've been getting have been coming in much, much higher than you anticipated them coming in. So even though we did get these numbers from a contractor we've worked with before, we thought it made sense to put in a large contingency fee. Architectural fees and engineering, $72,000. We have increased staffing for 1 year. They'll allow us extra staffing at $56,000. And then, as I said before, the furnishing and fixtures at $24,000. We do have a commitment from an individual for a $50,000 gift. And I have a grant out for another organization for another $100,000. And their $100,000, a big chunk of it would go towards housing our clients in a hotel. Because at the very beginning of this project, as they're breaking through that bathroom and retrofitting the current structure with the new electric and the new sprinklers, we'll have to have people out of the shelter, and we don't want them just not having any place to go. So we will utilize one of the local hotels. We'll get an extra room at that local hotel, and that's where our staff will be during the day. So I'm hoping that you will see this as a very worthy project, that you will help us to make this dream of ours that we've had for a while come true, and make the community a safe place during COVID or other pandemics for a very vulnerable population. I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Well, thank you, Barb, for you and your team for providing this to people in need. I mean, I've been there numerous times, and I was totally amazed at you and your staff and what you've accomplished for people who have no place to turn. I mean, they feel protected there. So one question I had, the grant money would be a total of 150. That has nothing to do with the 879.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Barb?
Lee.
Supervisor Winker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very simply, Barb, my question is, what's the average length of stay for a client that comes out there?
That's kind of a hard question to answer, but if we look at overall length of stay, sometimes people will come in for a day or two and then move on to a family member's home or somewhere else. But our average length of stay right now is around 72 days. The reason being for that, a lot of times when people come into shelter, they don't have access to any of the paperwork that they need. Their birth certificates, the banking information, driver's license, any of those things might be social security cards are usually locked away from them. So we have to start very simply by first getting birth certificates for people, including kids, then going to Social Security and try to get their Social Security cards reviewed, then try to get a driver's license or an ID. You can't apply for W-2 benefits or any kind of benefits without having that paperwork. So
No,
that in and of
that's
itself can take quite a bit of time.
very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Winker. Supervisor Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Barb. Just curious about the increased staffing line item. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yes, because we're going to have another section coming off of the main building. We do have a small office in that section area, and we will have to have an extra person in that office area, just to keep an eye on what might be going on back, and to be of assistance for the people who are using the ADA bedrooms and bathrooms and such.
So that would be just during the period of construction, or is this an ongoing expense?
We're gonna do it for a year, and we're gonna see how things go and whether or not that's something that we will need to continue to do, if that's something we can find a volunteer to do. But we want to make sure during that first year that we are safe and protecting everyone and making sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to go. We recently were told that we cannot use cameras inside the building, which we did have some cameras inside the building in the children's area and the laundry room, basically so we could make sure that people were safe. But some of our federal funders have now said that if we have cameras and we're observing people, we have to include the camera footage in the 7 years that we have to keep the records for them. So we have shut those cameras off. That would have been an option in this area, but right now it's not. The extra office is also due to COVID, and that is because we had one office with 2 people in it, and we couldn't have the proper separation that we needed. So we're putting a small office in this new addition so we can still have 2 staff members in the shelter at one time if we need to.
Thank you, Supervisor Ross. Supervisor Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barb, as the chairman indicated, certainly appreciate.
Hit your microphone.
It is on, I'll lean in a
The
little
light is
more.
in. Okay.
Appreciate all the work you're doing. A couple of questions. So is it my understanding that you're still operating at a reduced capacity due to COVID right now?
That depends on the day. Depends on the day and Dr. Fauci and the CDC. We went back from March through probably close to the end of 2020. We did do a reduced. We were acting at reduced rates. We did have some people go into hotels when there was an emergency. It's just not the best situation for people because oftentimes sleeping is a hard thing for a lot of people who have been through domestic violence and sexual assault situations. Having someone on staff 24/7 where they can go downstairs in the middle of the night and have a conversation is really important. Yes, in a hotel, they could still call us and have a phone conversation, but it isn't the same thing. Right now, we are back to staff. We are back to putting people in all of the upstairs rooms the way we did in the past. So those rooms are all the same. Our first floor bedroom, we're keeping kind of as a 1-person kind of quarantine bedroom in case we have someone who is got symptoms of illness. We have someone in there right now. She's tested negative, but she continues to feel like she has COVID. So we have her downstairs where she has her own bedroom and her own bathroom.
Okay, so it sounds like you're back to almost normal operating capacity with the exception of that quarantine room?
Yes.
Is that my understanding? Okay. This, I don't know if this is a proposal or a request or the $879,000. I know there's no action today or anything. And then you mentioned grant and a gift and hotel costs on the side and so forth. So if that's not on here because there's separate funding for that, so that's kind of off on the side, are you looking, I guess I'm asking the question, are you looking for the county to fund this entirely, or, you're very active with grants, I understand, and so forth. Are you looking to fund some of this with gifts and grants too? Can you give us an overview of that?
Well, this grant actually is an opportunity for $1 million. Fundraising last year became quite challenging. So at this point, we're looking for this grant to fund as much of this project as we possibly can. I don't want to go to our other funders for money to fund this expansion and then have us fall short in staffing or have us fall short in another area. So given the opportunity to go as high as $1 million on this grant, that's what we've chosen to do at this time. The $100,000 we won't know about until probably April or so. So it's a possibility that it's coming in, but it's not a for sure thing. The only thing we know for sure is the $50,000.
Sure. Because my thought was, I wonder if you should put the hotel costs in this because it directly relates, but I don't know.
I just sent that question to Jason yesterday.
Okay. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Wolf. Supervisor Millitek?
Yes, Barb, I had a question about how much do we get involved with in cases of elder abuse?
Elder abuse? Oh, actually, I just wrote a grant for elder abuse last week. We see probably about 127 people during the year that can be considered elderly, 60 and above. We're part of the elder abuse I-team, work with the county on that, and we do quite a bit on that. If we get the grant that I'm hoping to get, we will have somebody going door to door with the people who are delivering lunches and dinners, just to hand off something to the people, the elderly people, that talks about abuse and what it could be like and the fact that we're here for them.
Okay, thank you. Fantastic. I think that's overlooked a lot. Thanks.
Thank you Supervisor Millitek. Supervisor Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So getting back to this $1 million grant, is it that the county would like provide 20% of it, or is there, I know when you ask for grants, usually if you have multiple sources of support, you tend to get the grant approved better. Are you looking for something like that, or what is the thought?
The only role for the county, so the county's role is we make the application
Okay,
to the state of Wisconsin. There are no county funds in this grant. We make the application to the state of Wisconsin. We've done, Jason Whittick from my team has done a lot of legwork. So, the money is available and ready. And then Advocates becomes a sub-recipient of those money. So we're basically a pass-through to get these. We have to apply for the funds, but then we just pass through the funds to Advocates to do their program. So just like the homeless shelter, we apply for the grants, we receive the grant funds, we will have a sub-recipient agreement with Advocates that spells out, everything from soup to nuts. And then they will receive those funds. And then there's a small role for us to monitor things and to make sure that things are progressing, but really they're besides some staff effort on this, there's no direct county funding in this grant.
thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Richard. Supervisor Strom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barbara, correct question I have is probably a little difficult answer, but how do you define success with the work that you do?
It comes in so many different ways. Success can be somebody leaving the shelter or leaving a home where there is abuse and moving into their own place. And right now, about 73% of the women who come into shelter do not go back to the abusive relationship, but move into an apartment on their own. And a big reason for that is that we've been applying for housing money now for the past 14, 15 years, and we're able to help them with first month's rent and security deposit. We have an agreement working with Aurora to help find jobs for people who don't have jobs or better jobs for people who do have jobs, but not self-supporting jobs. I personally define success, even if someone comes into shelter and they end up going back, I still think it's a success because they know we're there. They've come to us once. That means they'll come back again, most likely. And they've been treated with respect and non-judgmentally. And the fact that on average, it takes a person 5 times leaving before they leave for good. I think it's a success that they feel like they can come back. I think success in our children's program is kids learning how to treat each other with respect and kindness and caring. Learning that it wasn't their fault that there was an abusive person in the house that beat their mother or father, or who also abused them. We take our responsibility towards children just as importantly as we do towards the adults who are involved in the situation. Currently working with Amanda from the Lakeshore Regional Child Advocacy Center to try to get forensic interviews done for kids who have witnessed domestic violence. So we know what they've seen, what they've heard, how they feel about that. And that gives us a real jump in knowing how to work with them. If we can work with the kids and we can work with young victims of sexual assault, we have a much, much better chance of not having them become victims a second time around or become abusers themselves. So success comes in a lot of different ways.
Just to follow up, unrelated, do you need to be an Ozaukee County resident to be one of your clients?
No, you do not need to be an Ozaukee County resident to be one of our clients, but 76% or so are Ozaukee County clients.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Strom. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Barb, for all you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening today and for inviting us. I appreciate all your support.
So there'll be a resolution before the Health and Human Services Committee approving the submittal and acceptance of this grant next week, Tuesday, and then that will come before the board at your February meeting for approval. So that'll be the process moving forward.
So next up, we have committee appointments and reappointments. And appointments that we have is Barb Jones is going to take over as the chairman of NRC, and Supervisor Holyoke is going to move up in the vice chair's position. So do we have a motion from the floor? Nelson Grabo. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Committee reports. Anybody from any committee have any chairs, any committee report? Supervisor Wolf?
Just very briefly, I did talk with attorney Andy Phillips with Von Briesen, who represents the county and the WCA at the Wisconsin Counties Highway Conference on Monday regarding the town bridge aid issue. Rhonda had reached out to them or to him. He said he hadn't got to it yet, but he was going to elevate it to the first thing on his agenda. So we should be hearing back from them with regard to what their opinion of the situation is.
Excellent, thank you. Any other committee reports? Supervisor Nelson moves to adjourn. Second by Clark. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion